Right, so from Centrepoint to Gloriavale, some of our most notorious cults will be in the spotlight at Decult. I love this. Australasia's first cult awareness conference. It is taking place in Christchurch later this year, the brainchild of investigative journalist and author, Anke Richter. And I reckon this is fascinating work, and well done to her. Experts and survivors will share their stories of life inside these cults and their journey after leaving them. The aim is to raise awareness. I think also to raise some money too, so they get some backing. Anke joins us now. G'day, nice to have you on the program.
Morena, Duncan, great to be here.
You know, I'm fascinated by cults, always have been. You know, as a young kid, I lived on the North Shore of Auckland, so we'd often drive around, go up to the Centrepoint open days. Centrepoint had an open day every year. We'd go in there and the toilets were all open. I found it strange and freaky, but I was fascinated by it. Who's going to turn up at your conference?
Look, it's quite a mixed audience. There will be some former children and survivors, leavers from cults here in New Zealand. There'll be lots of international people, experts that we're flying over from Europe, from the US. There will be therapists, doctors. It's quite interesting. We're trying to get all these different people in a room together so they can learn from each other and basically give them some cult education. So we're responding to a situation that we have here in New Zealand that needs to change.
How many cults are there worldwide? How many do you estimate? What about in New Zealand? What's the answer?
Well, you know, no one's really studied this in New Zealand. There's no data because we don't actually have these researchers here. This is another thing that needs to change. But estimates are that there are dozens and dozens of, definitely a few dozens of cults in New Zealand here, but that there are tens of thousands of people who are actually affected by them. And not just the ones who are in them or who've come out, but the ripple effect of especially kids who've grown up in these groups. You know, they come out, they often don't have an education. They've been shunned by their family. They can fall into suicide, addiction, unemployment. They have to find their feet in the world. And that has a ripple effect on their life and then maybe their offspring and their family and so on. So it is a massive public health issue, actually, that's totally unrecognized and that we don't have the right answer for yet.
I agree with you. This is because this is basically law breaking. This is against, what they're doing is against, well, it's morally weird, but it's against the law, you know?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, actually, to run a cult is not illegal. It's not illegal to be cult leader, right? It's not even a clearly defined legal term what a cult is, but there are often criminal activities like coercive control. Even that's still legally hard to grasp here with the laws that we have current. There's often some kind of financial shadiness, sexual abuse. At least that's something you can report to the police, but it's really difficult if you're already in an environment where you don't speak out against your group, where you can't just leave and go to the police station, where you've been indoctrinated against the authorities, you don't have a school teacher or a doctor, or you've never seen a counselor in your life. Where do you even start to report any abuse?
Yeah.
And especially if it's been drummed into you, that's probably your fault that this happened to you because maybe your faith isn't strong enough. I mean, the victim blaming and everything that goes in groups like Gloriavale, but not just there, makes it so much harder to even bring any of these allegations to the police.
It's about control, isn't it? I mean, it's a coercive, it's control. In many ways, it's slavery too. You look at Gloriavale, for instance. That's probably our biggest cult in New Zealand, isn't it? Was Gloriavale our biggest?
No, actually, it's not, right? Because we have 500-600 people living in Gloriavale. Most of them were born into it. It's probably our most... it's just on the radar at the moment, and it's such a textbook cult which ticks so many boxes, even from the look to the compound and all of that. And thank God they're in the courts now, and this is being addressed. But look, there are thousands of people here in New Zealand who are part of a group that I'd only heard about for the first time last year, the Truth, or the 2x2s, or the Cult Without a Name. There are so many people who've come out of the Jehovah's Witnesses or are still in them, or the Exclusive Brethren. They go through a lot of the same things that the Gloriavale people go through, but it's not as visible. Maybe it's not on the radar so much. So I think Gloriavale is a textbook example for what can go wrong and what needs to change. And we have to ask ourselves, 20 years after Centrepoint, why has this still be happening? Have we learned nothing? Why does it need more court cases to actually shut something like this down?
It's interesting you mentioned the Exclusive Brethren too, because I think one of your guest speakers at the conference will be Craig Hoyle, who we've worked with before, a really brave man who I've got a lot of respect for, who left his family, who walked out on his family because he said that, he announced, well, I'm gay, and so that went down like a cup of cold chicken within the Exclusive Brethren. They tried to change him and give him all sorts of changed behaviours, and this wasn't going to work. This guy's gay. His story is bloody incredible, isn't it?
And he will be on a panel that we have at Decult, which is one about homophobia and rainbow rights, because that is an issue in a lot of culture groups. Craig will also do a session about his book and his own experiences. And shunning or being excommunicated, what he's went through is true for so many cult leaders from other evangelical groups too. And, in my books and many other people's books, that's a human rights issue. That's a crime. Mandated shunning is a crime. And the damage it does to people, and it's like group bullying and actually declaring someone a not just a persona non grata, basically like you're dead. I mean, there's so many people walking amongst us here in Aotearoa who've gone through this, who are afraid of this might happen, who live a double life. There's this term called PIMO, which means physically in, mentally out, which you often find also with Jehovah's Witnesses, where they just can't they just can't leave the fold because everything's at stake for them. Generations of their family in there. They just don't have a home, spiritually, physically anymore if they leave. But at the same time, they've checked out mentally. They know this is wrong.
Yes.
They woke up to what's really going on. Can you imagine the stuff that people carry, and they would not go and reveal that and talk about it. So we really hope that at the Decult conference, there's a space to reveal these things, to open people's eyes, to educate stakeholders in government, in social services. We have a special session just for healthcare workers so that they understand what people in cults need. Yeah.
Have you got the government coming? You need ministers, you need the government agencies, because this is very much in its infancy in terms of opening itself up to the world. So if you can only really get some action if you get the people with the influence at the table. You can tell all your stories, but you need some of the influencers there as well, some of the people that can actually take action or make a change or help fund the conference and get it onto a level where it's actually got some grunt, you know what I mean?
I absolutely agree. And we're currently knocking at the government's door and inviting the Minister of Mental Health and the Minister of Health. Labour MP Duncan Webb will actually open the conference. Hey, here's to all the Duncans, right?
Hooray!
Big shout out to the Duncans.
Yeah, they're good guys. They run cults, but anyway.
The cult of Duncan, yeah, bring it on. So we're really stoked that we're getting that response. And after the Decult conference, our keynote speaker Janja Lalich, a US expert, we're taking her to Parliament. There's going to be a dinner with her in her honor, where we're also inviting people. Actually, it's the Gloriavale Leaver Support Trust putting that on, but I'll be there, and we just really want to bring people from the government, from the police, from law enforcement, social services into one room and actually understand that there's a problem which they need to know and understand more about.
Yeah.
Look, we don't even have a government-funded or centrally run anti-cult agency here in New Zealand like other Western countries have them. And I think it's about time. And so we're bringing a person over from Austria who actually runs that agency there as a psychologist, and she can maybe show us the ropes and say, look, this is a blueprint, get this going here in Aotearoa.
Cults. I'm just getting a lot of feedback in here as you're speaking. The feedback's coming through. Destiny is a cult. No ifs and no buts, says Dave. I think Destiny is a cult. It's a religious cult.
Yeah.
Because if you don't sign up, you're out. You know.
I mean, they're also very litigious. So let's just. I'm always careful how I use the C word.
Yeah, bring it.
I think it's fair to say it's a problematic group. I think they've proven it in so many ways. I hope that we will be talking about them at Decult. We will see. We're still looking for the right person to do that, but I'm sure that person will show up. And but there are lots of other groups too, and it's not just so much about putting them in the cult box, but actually highlighting how a group that's maybe started off with really good intentions or is doing some good things for some people, because actually most cults do. There's always some good element. Even Gloriavale has some things that are probably good for some people, right? Or they live together, they farm together, or their honey is great, or whatever it would be. But that does not excuse or in any way justify the coercive control. And so it's going to be interesting, to actually listen to hopefully an expert who can explain to us, is that happening within Destiny Church or not? Or it's just, let's put it to the test.
I wonder, things that are seen as much more acceptable, like the royal family, for instance. I mean, I'm not saying the royal family is a cult, but they have their own behaviours and their own rules, and they all live within that compounds and things. You could if you're a fancy lawyer, you could argue that potentially they have similar behaviours.
It's an interesting one, because you could definitely argue how hard is it to leave there, and how much do you have to conform, and how much pressure is there on you, and what are the consequences if you pull out. Well, I mean, maybe the consequences in Harry's case
Look at
is that
Harry.
you get a
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar book deal. And I mean, it's maybe not the same as Craig Hoyle leaving the fold of the brethren, right? And being pushed through conversion therapy and so on. So I wouldn't put it on the same par but cults come in, or culty groups come in so many shapes and forms. I would say the Playboy Mansion was run like a cult, for instance.
Good point.
They're life coaching cults. They're even therapists who've created their little culty groups. So it's not always people in orange garb or blue garb living together in a compound. There is usually a charismatic leader of sorts, but even that person doesn't look like your typical guru. Yeah? I mean, look at Bert Potter when he started. He looked like a potato farmer, sorry, right? But he was not your sex guru type, and yet he managed to pull this thing off and bring so many people in who were middle class, educated. Yeah. So everyone's susceptible. It's not like we can just spot these things right away. This is why I think cult education is so important, that people actually understand everyone's susceptible. These things actually are everywhere, especially in the new age wellness scene, which is a huge unregulated market. And I mean, there's so many groups, Luke, and we can't even address them all at Decult, but we're starting somewhere.
Yeah, good
and
on
then
you.
We're going to carry on. Yeah.
Good on you. How can people get in touch with you? Do you have an email? Do you have a sort of a website somewhere where people can sort of touch base, because if they're interested in this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Go on decult.net and you find all the info there. There's an email address, info@decult.net. If you want to email us, you can get tickets there. We still have some tickets left. We will sell out, but we'll also have online tickets. It's super exciting. It's happening at Turanga Library, beautiful venue, very symbolic, because
exactly. Open information.
Are kept away. Yeah, cult leavers are kept away from books normally. Cults don't want you to get all the information. So I think it's very symbolic that we're doing it in a public library.
Great chat. Hey, thank you so much for your time today, Anke, and all the very best. Love what you're doing.
Oh, thank you, Duncan. Thanks for the support.
Take care. The Cult of Duncan loves it. Yo.
Duncan Garner.